Welcome back. You're watching Cheche with today's guest from Yala, Nancy Abisai. She heads the Kenya chapter of the Assembly. We also have Mike Sebalu, a member from Uganda. From the Kenya Bankers Association, we have the Chief Executive Officer, Habil Olaka, and there's several questions for you. This batch of questions has to do with depositors. Allow our daily allowances, at least via ATM for now. Don't starve us. That came from Jay in Nairobi, who I think is the same person who says no one has told us what will happen to our millions, not the 100K. Ask them about balances in the millions or hundreds of thousands. Where do we bank now? Best option, mattress account. Robert Nembakasi. Why should a previously negotiated loan be subject to interest increase without reference to the customer? Who protects the customer? Gatimbu, Meru. The banks do reschedule loans, but this is subject to hidden costs in terms of extra legal fees, valid in Mombasa. And so there's a lot of frustration with not just Imperial Bank, but banks in general. To the depositors, what protection do they have? When can they expect to withdraw money from the ATMs? Yeah. How are they protecting the millions?
Yeah. Now, one of the things we mentioned was that the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation has been appointed as the receiver managers.
But that's for a period of 12 months.
Of the bank for a period of 12 months. But within that 12 is a maximum period of 12 months. They should resolve the issue well within the 12 months and much shorter. Now, depending on what they come up with, they will be coming up with updates to the market, and we are expecting an initial statement from Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation almost immediately in terms of the initial update to the market in terms of the way forward. Now,
so we still don't know when we can go to the ATM and get some money out?
Now, that is a decision that will be left to the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation to come up to the market and inform the market on the way forward based on their initial review and observations. Now, there was the issue that was raised about the 100,000 shillings versus millions. Now, what happens in the banking sector is that there is an amount up to which the depositor is insured effectively, protected, and that protection is given by the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation. So any amount that is up to that amount, once the decision has been made, it is then paid to the depositor up to that maximum. Now, anything above that, supposing you had 1 million shillings, will be compensated from the Deposit Insurance Corporation up to 100,000. Now, beyond that, the Deposit Insurance Corporation then has got to resolve the institution. If it decides to go into liquidation, then you recover the assets and use the assets of the bank to pay off the depositors that are not insured, which means that you'll then follow the order of priority. Depositors, and then subsequent to that, it will be the shareholders if any balance is left. The normal course of liquidating an institution.
Okay. Is the bank bond protected?
The bank bond is not protected by the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation because one is that their amounts are specifically under the bond issue, and it's not a deposit per se into the institution.
Okay. So you had an interesting question during the break, and there's a flip side to it. I'll ask you for your version of it in a moment. Does the central bank wait till banks cry wolf for them to act? The early 80s money market turmoil is rearing its head. But your question was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
There's something that is intriguing me, because my brother has continued to show that these board members were very responsible people. They didn't wait to be hunted. They volunteered information. But we need to look at the motivation for their coming out to state that position. Could it be that they knew the red flag was up and they would be caught, so that they were preemptive, not to take responsibility for what was happening, or they were acting out of good management practice to ensure that the bank is run on a sound footing? Secondly, when did the central bank get this information, and how long has it taken for the central bank to take this kind of action that they took?
There was a third question to that, which was, have the directors withdrawn their money from the bank and then stepped back to allow the central bank's management to take over?
Yeah, I think those are the normal kind of issues that will come up when something like this happens. There will be the normal concerns that will come up. Could this have happened? Could this have happened? Or could this not have happened? And I think the answer to these questions will become quite clear once the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation has done its initial review and come up with even the initial statement in terms of the state of affairs as they have moved in and found the state of affairs of the bank to be. As we speak now, we might just be speculating, because is it true that some deposits were paid out? You know, until the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation gives us the initial statement, which should be pretty soon. I expect it to be soon, because we move in with speed, do the initial assessment, and be ready to give information to the market as and it becomes necessary.
Okay, so we don't know the answers to the questions we've asked, is what you're saying. But there's a question here from Minor. CBK supervision department should be strengthened. Risk and compliance departments in commercial banks report directly to the board, and directors should be held accountable for any bank going under. Does that exist? Should we be talking more? And now this broadens out to the regional scenario. Should we be talking more about regional cross-border supervision and financial?
Actually, just addition to that, because the central bank is moving in on the information from the bank itself. Isn't that a vote of no confidence in their supervision department?
Exactly.
Because you are supposed to even be able to pick signals. Even before things happen, you are supposed to be at a level where you pick signals. But for you to be told that actually we are doing badly, isn't that really?
Which they failed also during the Bank saga. They failed during the Bank saga.
And it's a trend.
It's a trend. They were told.
I think one thing, and we're now beginning to speculate, because the thing is that we are assuming that we know what information the central bank was given. For it to have been, perverse within the bank, for it to have been able to be picked by the central bank. I think the information so far is the fact that the board of directors came up with information and gave it to the central bank. Whether that information should have been picked by the supervision arm of the bank,
I think
that's more
what is not in contention and what cannot never be taken as speculation is the fact that there is a problem.
Yes.
That is stated.
Absolutely.
And who is supposed to pick pillars?
And I think one of the things that the new governor put very clearly when he came into the bank was the fact that there are a number of areas that he's going to focus on, and one of them was supervision, and he was clearly talking about strengthening the supervision function of the central bank. The other thing that I think we should also be acknowledging is the fact that there is a regional supervision of the commercial banks, where the lead supervisor, in this case the central bank, takes the lead and ensures that the depositors across the whole regional institution is protected. And I think the level of coordination between the Central Bank of Kenya and the Bank of Uganda is particularly commendable in this particular case, and it shows that the cross-border supervision of banking institutions is working.
Robust. Okay. For our guest from the East African Legislative Assembly, Joab in Nairobi challenges you, says you're not being honest. There is mistrust among member states, and this should be addressed honestly. Cheche, I lived in Tanzania as a student for 7 years. During this time we were allowed entry for 6 months with the Kenyan East African passport. What changed? Because last month I was allowed only a few days with that same passport.
Well, I think there's a need for us to do a lot of sensitization in terms of the laws we've passed and what is really happening. I can tell you, I'm sure there's a reason why the person was given a few days and not 6 months. Even us as members of parliament, when we go to Arusha, we need, just like any other country, when we go to Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, there's certain conditions that you need to fulfill as a traveler. It doesn't mean that because we've integrated that you just cross the border without any sort of regulation. And I think that those are the things that people need to understand. Even with that ID, there have to be certain, you need to establish whether it's an authentic ID. Anybody can go and bring an ID from anywhere.
Of quite a few of our viewers. The immigration laws in Tanzania are very rigid, such that Kenyans cannot get jobs easily. especially getting a work permit, is next to impossible. Yet Tanzanians have flooded Kenyan Mitumba, the second-hand clothing market, and nobody bothers them the way immigration guys do to Kenyans in Tanzania. Are they really interested in integration with such very strong words, with such strong feelings? I'll edit that towards fellow East Africans.
Where I live, there is a guy, a Tanzanian guy with a butchery.
Yeah, but
we might go to Arusha trying to set up a butchery.
But there's something that you need to find out. Is it also a failed system within our own system in this country? Because do we know all the foreigners living here, and do they have the proper papers? You know, let us also be honest with ourselves. Because we've had issues even when we've been talking about Al-Shabaab, and then you find there is somebody who got into this country, came from I don't know where, doesn't have papers, and yet they're just walking freely in Nairobi.
So it's a matter
on
of
the street.
Tanzania enforcing its laws more effectively.
I think so. They're just being, and even in Rwanda.
But the question I asked a little earlier.
The common market is also clear, because there are categories of people that are allowed for purposes of establishment, and those categories are clearly indicated.
They are clearly indicated, yes.
So if in case in some partner states, people other than those categories that are allowed happen to get their way around, it doesn't then make it a problem for one who is following up on the categories.
I think a survey was done, and perhaps another one needs to be done to update the last one, about the level of support or endorsement of the movement towards the East African Federation. And you mentioned sensitization of people. I think that is obvious. In some countries it must be very low, and in some countries there must be a bit of resistance because of the experience this is bringing to them in terms of loss of opportunities, competitive nature of the federation that it will become when this eventually happens. What was the rating? Because I think there is a bit of approval in some countries and very low approval support in some countries.
I couldn't agree with you more, because even right now we have some NGOs who've been doing even reports on the state of East Africa community every year. But I can tell you, even as the Kenyan chapter, we got elected. It's like you get elected into parliament, people know you've gone to Arusha. What you got, the only time that it elicits a lot of concern or a lot of interest is during the electioneering period. After that, nobody ever asks what you're doing, or are they interested in knowing what is the assembly doing, what is happening within integration. We, I believe, have tried as a Kenya chapter to do a lot of sensitization with the Ministry of the State Department of East African Affairs, to just reach out to the people, go to counties, find out whether people understand what integration is. There are members who would ask you, if you say you're a Yala member, they ask you, what is that? Now that tells you that we need to do a lot of sensitization, and all the members of the summit, the summit, you know, the 5 presidents, have actually reiterated the need for sensitization, both at the local level as the ministries of EAC and the members of parliament and you know, the various institutions that can be able to do that, so that we don't have the misinformation that is going around. Because now when you talk to somebody about free movement of goods, what does that mean? You know, somebody, you know, people need to understand. In fact,
talking about it, what does this bill mean to me, an ordinary person doing my work or trading?
Electronic transactions
bill.
Very important.
So now, take it down to me and anybody else. What does it mean to me? Like I can go to Tanzania or Uganda, use my ATM, I can write email and it will be accepted. What does it mean? Basic.
But I wanted to respond to your earlier question of the survey that was done. I happen to have been a member of there was a time they put an initiative of fast tracking the East African Political Federation, and I was a member of the Ugandan Commission dealing with that. At the end of the day, a report was given, and an indication in terms of support was given. And surprisingly, Tanzania was very high in terms of support. What they had reservations about at some level was maybe the political integration, but support for the integration, it was actually the highest, incidentally. So, but the problem we are having, some of it is within the bureaucratic arrangements. I can give you a very recent example that over the weekend I went to Arusha, via Namanga. And on my way back, I went to the immigration. And the senior officer on the Kenyan side of immigration didn't know the process of a 6 months visa. That when you have a 6 months visa and you are moving in and out, it shouldn't be stamped. I took about 30 minutes arguing with a very senior official, and even had to go up to consult with someone, and then came back, and now that is the level. So when we are talking about integration, we shouldn't assume even our technical people, because there are decisions which are taken in Arusha, but they are not well communicated to the relevant ministries, departments and agencies. So you find that a decision has been taken, implementation is not on because someone is using the old frame of mind of how things have been done. So let's not talk about ordinary people alone. This needs to go actually, if we get the systems conforming to what is taken, then it will be easy for the ordinary people to appreciate, understand, and own up on the process.
So what is it? I think just that particular bit. What is it that I could not
earlier,
do?
But we need to distill it down further.
What is it that I could not do that I can now do with these electronic transactions?
For example, everything you can sit and do your transactions at a place where you are without moving. You have the
facilitates e-commerce.
Yes, it facilitates e-commerce completely. There is you can do e-filing of documents, e-signatures, payment systems. So you don't have to move from office to office. You can sit on a machine, file your documents, process all your documents, do your payments just by following the process.
As long as you have internet access.
And the most important aspect is that because you can do that now, but it is not secured. It's very important that it is being regulated.
It is,
and there's security and safeguards to protect you. That is a very
big it becomes admissible in court.
It was a very big debate even when we were doing the public hearings. Everybody wanted to know how secure is it, and I think that has been addressed very well in the bill, so that you know, the element of fraud is almost minimal or none at all.
And you know, cybercrime.
Yes.
It's a big problem.
And we do have a cyber crime framework within the region, which has been signed and agreed upon by all 5 partners.
All right, thank you. We have to end the program there because we are out of time. And so we'll thank you for your time on Cheche this morning. Our guest from the East African Legislative Assembly. You've got to rush off to Parliament to listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta address you. We also thank Habil Olaka from the Kenya Bankers Association for clearing up these issues surrounding Imperial Bank. We thank our panelists, Mutegi Njau and David Makali. And thank you for watching and engaging with us here on Cheche on Citizen TV. My name is Udwa Kamimo. We'll see you next week.